Because I have a special mic that I can quickly connect. But I think we'll have to change the settings in Skype. Hold on 1 second.
Sure. If you, it sounds pretty good, but if you want to put that on, that's good too.
Let's see this one. Isn't that a little bit better?
Oh, that's much better. Yeah.
Yes, right? Yeah. I will put a little piece of tape to glue it. So one more. There it is. Yeah, usually we use this one for our classes. So it sounds a little better.
Oh, yeah, it's much better. Yeah. So how are you?
Good, very good. What shall we do in terms of the technical? Are you going to record it? Or?
Yes, I'm recording right now.
Oh, you're recording. Oh. Okay, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to do anything.
So I've got my cup of mate, and I'm ready to.
Oh, mate!
Do you drink mate?
I grew up. I wish. It's too strong for me.
Oh, is that right?
Mate, was my drink during all my childhood because mate is an herb that grows in Argentina a lot, and it's sold. It was always much cheaper than coffee and regular tea.
Right. Yeah, my partner is Argentinian, so she introduced me to mate.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and we drink it in a
the gourd.
With a straw.
Right. So I don't know if you know anything about what I'm doing, but I'm interviewing. I'm interviewing people from a wide assortment of backgrounds and perspectives, talking about consciousness and the state of the world today, and I'm very much looking forward. I don't have proportionately. I don't have as many women perspectives as men. So I'm always looking forward.
Why not?
I just a lot of times women aren't as interested in talking about stuff. I've found when I've contacted them, or it just turns out that if I'm talking to a nuclear physicist, more often than not they are men who've written books on the subject or something, or so. And just one last thing is that I have to say that the greatest influence in the trajectory of my life, an outside influence, was Carlos Castaneda, those books. So any reference to that, you don't need to even put a background onto it. We can just
I always talked about him because he has been a great influence in my life as well.
Right. So how I enter into
So would you mind, before we start, I'm going to close the door in case the gardeners come and a little bit more quiet, make it like a cocoon, a little more there.
Great.
Now we can start.
Awesome. So how I enter into the conversation is to ask you how you would describe the state of the world today.
That is a great question. I was going to make a joke about it because that is a great question for a guy, I don't know. It's a great question for everybody. It's a big question because the world, could be my world or my reality, because there's so many realities. Depends with whom you talk to, right? And which part of the world they live. I think in general, we all can agree that there is like an acceleration of things. Because even when I talk to younger people in their 20s, everybody says, wow, it's going fast. 2018 already. Wow, February. Right. I have to catch up with life. Like we are all running towards what? And from what as well? Is that planetary acceleration? It's a technological acceleration. Depends. The Mayans have an explanation for it.
Your audio is cutting in and out all of a sudden.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. It's all right.
Let me see.
Sure.
Maybe I need to put new batteries, or maybe we can go to another audio system. Maybe it will be faster.
Sure.
Sorry?
That's okay. That's why I always start with that question, because it reveals a lot about the person who's answering it in a lot of ways too. And it sort of gives me a direction of how they perceive the moment.
How is it now, the sound?
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different, but yeah.
It's still good.
Yeah.
Well, do you find that with your own life? I know that trying to pin you down to a time seems to be like quite a seesaw of forces. Do you find that you're in the same accelerated state that you're quite...
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Carlos Castaneda, a year before he left, let's say he left the planet in his physical form, or he died. He used to, talk about 2012, because that was 1997, right? So 2012 seems so far away, and was another world in the 90s where Facebook and Twitter, none of this existed. And I remember one afternoon being in the garden in his house, outside in the patio, and he grabbed like a little piece of a branch of a tree. We were pruning the trees. He had dozens of orange, lemon, peaches trees, and part of my training was learning to relate to trees, because I grew up urban. I grew up in Buenos Aires, that is like being grown up in the Bronx or in New York, where there was not much contact with nature per se. So learning about nature's time and a relationship, which is another mood, and the silence of a tree, for example, was very important for me to learn, and I realized how important was to have that in my life and in my perception. So we were outside, and he grabbed a thing, and he started making like the galaxy, the Milky Way shape in a spiral motion. And he said in 2012 is when the solar systems aligned with the center of the galaxy, the Milky Way. And for me, it was like, okay. And, I was still so young. I didn't understand the significance of that. And he said, I'm not going to be around, but you will, and shake, tight your pants, with your belt, because it will be required a moment. And I said, why? Because he said the direct is an alignment with direct knowledge, with the directness of things. Things will be or white or black. It will be very clear, everything.
Right.
And at the time, I didn't really understood well what he meant by that. But through my relationship with him and seeing him how he left this world, the last 6 months of his life, we spent a lot of time going to the beach just to do meditations, connecting to the sun. And it was very moving to observe him. He will sit down on the bench on the Santa Monica Bluff here in Los Angeles, and he will have conversations with the sun in the early mornings, and he will talk to the sun like if the sun was his father. And I will be sitting there with another one of his students and just witness. For us was just to witness that. And I will have all type of reactions to that. In one hand, I will feel like, oh, wow, so moving. And on another hand was like, okay, watching my watch, I'm hungry, I want breakfast. When is this going to be over? It's weird, he's talking to the sun. And I don't know what to do with this. And now that I'm, 20 years later, I can see how impressive was that. Because he died, the sun is the source of consciousness, because it's a source of life for all of us here in this planet. Without the sun, we wouldn't be alive. And what he learned from his teacher and many other traditions that they come from Mexico is that the sun is our source of consciousness. And we come from the stars and we go back to the stars. And he spent the last 6 months of his life having those daily communications, like I'm becoming one with you, I'm going back home. And it was so moving, and it's still so moving for me to establish our understanding of our relationship to the universe as large, that we are not separate entities here trying to make up our living, but having an understanding of part of not only global but universal connection. So the acceleration of our time probably is also an acceleration of the universe and consciousness. And like the universe is, I feel, is pushing me to show up in my life, to be aware, to dare, to do the things that I'm scared of doing, to stop playing small and like a victim, or the old games of my consciousness that I use, all my tricks that I used in the past. Now they don't work anymore. So, and I have to show up every day like I'm showing up to this interview.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, vulnerable, open. Probably I will make mistakes, and it's okay, and be truthful and be honest.
So do you feel like you're caught up in that whirlwind, or do you feel that you're just navigating your way through it, being pushed around, or I guess that's your trick, is to be centered and to ride that wave?
I feel I'm being navigating and being pushed by all these forces. The force of what Castaneda called the first attention, which is the force of the demands of daily life, of checking Facebook, checking your Twitter, taking your kids to school, showing up for work, paying your taxes. It's like, how can I simplify my life? My goal has been, for the last 2 years with my husband, our intention, it has been simplifying, making it simple and easier, because it's such complex lives we have right now.
Well, I spoke with Miles. I assume that's who you're.
Yes.
A couple of weeks ago, and I get the same impression from him that like most doctors that I've seen, they're focused, but also they're not focused. They seem to be balancing many different heavy weights at the same time. Is that the way that you prefer to live, or?
No, I don't want to live that way. I want to. One of the things that I see on my practice too, as a teacher and as a healer, how the lack of energy, everybody is exhausted, and the lack of energy and the lack of attention.
Right.
So what all the tools that I learned in the last 30 years of work and spiritual development, what tools can I use and to apply to my own life, to be more focused and to gather energy and to be vital and energetic, and to pay attention, to be focused, how I can. And be focused doesn't mean narrow Monday. I can be super alert of a lot of things at the same time and be calm. Like calm alertness is important.
Right. So is it a matter of balancing? I mean, it seems to me that, like you were saying, 2012, I guess, really shows the split that we all experience personally, and of course it reflects into the world. And to reconcile that split is the challenge of any sorcerer or warrior, obviously, and it's a challenge for the world in its survival. What do you use as the reference point within yourself to find that equilibrium?
It's a great question. I think I remind every day in my life of the word energy. I have it written like in a little, that I am energy first. So then if I can identify myself as energy, expressing myself as a mother, expressing myself as a wife, energy, expressing myself as a therapist, then it gives me like a little distance with those demands, my internal demands that, I have the voice of being good and doing my best, the internal pressure and the external pressures. That is the number one thing that I use that resonates with me. Maybe other people will use the word, I don't know, I'm a spirit first, having a human experience, or love for other people. Other people resonate. For me, is energy. I am energy, so I don't have to fall into the thinking that I don't have energy. So I'm going to change my syntax and how I use my words, and be very careful to fall onto, oh, do this to get more energy. No, no, wait a minute. I am energy. So I don't need to run and do a lot of things to get more energy. I don't go and buy products and consume. Everybody wants to sell you a spirituality, wants to sell you energy. No, wait a minute. There's nothing to sell here. We are spiritual. We are energy already. We have everything that we need. And that is the lesson number one that Castaneda taught me. I am complete. It's a misperception, it's an illusion that I am not complete or that I don't have energy. So I need to clear my head so I can think clearly and differentiate between discerned illusion and reality. That I think that is our number one political issue today, in politics and in the world, in journalism today, media. What is real and what is illusion?
Right. So how do you discern? How does a person, and I imagine women have a different experience of it than men do. How do you discern that moment when emotions and subjectivity are mingling throughout the energy to create this foggy imperative that goes against your thoughts, which you think you know better, but you know what I mean? How do you unweave that tangle?
Yeah, it is a tangle. Yeah. You know, I use the premises like using death as an advisor. That is the presence of death clears my head completely of all the worries. When I start the mornings very clear, taking my son to school, my intention, I do my little meditation in the morning, so I'm clear, but by noon, I start losing it. If I don't have lunch, I loosen it even more. So I have my lunch and then my intention, I still have to get back people on the phone, all the doings of life. So I go back to my premises. Energy, okay, if today is my last day of my life, what thing I will really like to get done today? Well, that email to my accountant. Okay, let's do that one. So it helps me to set priorities. It's a great reference point.
And do you also use a reference point as the ultimate goal? I know that, from reading the books and from my own personal...
Hold on, I'm going to interrupt you 1 second. The noise, I hear let me close the window.
Sure, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, life.
I can see you're wrestling with
action of life.
I can see you're wrestling with chaos.
Yeah, the universe is chaos, and it's beautiful, and it's expanding and moving all the time.
Yeah, particularly when you can laugh with it, right?
Yeah. What else we can do, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Shoot, I had a particular question in mind. Do you remember what I was just asking you? I can't remember. It was oh.
It's okay.
I've lost that thread now.
We were talking about how we lose it in daily life and how we can come back and organize all our priorities.
Oh, right. Yes, right. So as a reference point, you use it as a reference point your internal energy sense. But do you also have a goal? In other words, I know that from the books and from my own practices, the definitive journey is always a goal.
Yeah.
That there's a purpose of every moment is a purpose here of preparing, not just preparing, but for expansion to continue the journey into infinity. Do you also share that? Is that also your goal?
Um, yeah, that is such a big question, such a, I see it so big, so far away. For me, my goal or my intention is liberation. I want to be free. I want to be free so I can love my enemies in my daily life. I want to be free so I don't get pissed off when I get a parking ticket.
Right.
I want to be free from my reactions to daily life, or so I can just be flow with daily life. And the messy life is messiness and it's unfair. So how I can just flow with it. That is my goal. And when I notice that I'm getting stuck on fix, on a resentment emotionally, or on an idea, free to let it go, let it go. Every time I notice getting stuck, I want things my way, I said, okay, because it's great to have, type A personality, achieve and manifest my goals. But yeah, you see, now I have to flow with the sound of the.
Well, do you find that your sense of possibility also acts as an advisor to the moment? In other
Yes.
words, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that is, yes. Yes.
So, possibility. I guess what I'm asking is, and I ask everybody, is what is possible for a human
Yeah.
being?
What is possible for us to do? I don't know. Castaneda used to say the sky is the limit. So what is possible? I don't know. I'm all the time, trying to to not to push, but to break through everything that he says you cannot. I remember when 10 years ago, 11 years ago, um, as I belong to the group, let's say to the group of Carlos Castaneda students, and none of them, no one had children, or they were married, and or they live a family life, and because supposedly you cannot be a warrior and a family member, or a student, a family have a child.
Right.
And I really questioned that, and I said, no, I don't want to have a child. I don't want to have a family, and that doesn't take away the possibility of spirituality and consciousness. So I challenged that, and I said, no, I'm going to do it,
Right.
and I don't care.
Right.
Let's keep, what is possible. Everything is possible. And we have a medical office and a medical practice, and in the last 20 years I've been witnessing things that they are truly impossible, like 5-stage breast cancer in remission, people healing from deadly diseases, people reconciliating after 20 years of not talking to their parents. I witnessed so many things that I don't, everything is possible.
You know, reading the books, of course, being a male, the books are definitely tended towards the male perspective in every
Yes.
way. And I know that I've seen in another interview with Carlos, he was particularly focused on the women, um, and that they were in a way the future perspective in some way. How have you found that from dealing with him personally that the teachings differed to a woman than to a man?
That is an excellent question. Yes. I think the main difference what he said and what I experienced is that women, we receive knowledge like in this way, right? And men, they go after knowledge this way. Because energetically our bodies are meant to receive that way, right? Just receive the download. And what women we need to is to train our minds so we can acknowledge the download of knowledge and information and share it with the world instead of just giving it for granted. And men, on the other way, that they do have the discipline to train their minds, they need to let also, after the mind is trained, allow the heart to take over and take them, so they can join the heart and the mind. I think that is the challenge for both genders, and Castaneda had an emphasis of all women. He took us to the university, go to study, cultivate your mind, and keep studying. And I think we have to, because we get then lost raising the kids and daily life, and then we don't think clearly, and then the emotions and the heart take over, and I think that and the jobs for both men and women is cultivating the mind and the heart, and allow them to the mind to surrender to the heart, but the mind needs to be trained,
and to synchronize, I imagine them.
yes, and synchronize them, yes. Yes, and the training was much different because we went to school and we did a lot of physical movement. He spent a lot of more time with the women because of that. Train them physically, a strong body and clear mind. And the guys that naturally, usually in the stereotypes, right? A guy will train himself mind-wise and physical-wise, so he will give them more the task of being the supported of the women, allow a space for the women, which I sometimes is really hard for a guy to want to be in the front. Allow the women to be in the front and be behind, supporting them.
So in the process of synchronizing those dialectics, it seems that's conflict, right? That's what we all experience as conflict.
Between the mind and the heart?
Yes. Would you say?
Yes, definitely.
So did Carlos have an idea, and you have an idea that the purpose of it? I know that you can go into the flyers that's
yes.
But that's just the universe
description.
But that's just a description of something that is part of our evolutionary consciousness, the evolution of consciousness. So did he ever describe what the purpose of that was? That there was a purpose to it all?
A purpose of
being in a conflicted state, being a conflicted being.
Yeah. Do you know what comes to me? The journey of Quetzalcoatl, or the plumed serpent. That is the plumed serpent symbolizes the serpent that has the awareness of the contact with the earth, and then develops the wings to bring, to reach to the sky. So bringing the sky energy will be maybe more mental or mind energy, and the earthy, physical heart energy. I think that conflict, but for example, challenges are needed for us to develop. We want challenges, because if everything goes our way, I don't know, sometimes we learn more from challenges than from stability. But within challenges and conflicts, we can find an stability. We can learn to be comfortable when it's in a very uncomfortable environment, internal environment and external. Is that what are you asking?
Yes.
I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Did you have a sense that Carlos still experienced conflict even in his later stages of life?
Definitely, yes. Challenge. He will use the word challenge, but yeah, how we as the conflict of his encounter with death. And is it that I have to acquiesce to death, surrender to it, or at the same time I want to keep my individuality? Is that dance of resisting and letting go?
Right.
And trusting higher forces, and trusting ourselves, and at the same time keeping our individuality, like in a relationship, or when we love someone very much, how much we are yes, we are loving you, but at the same time, keeping my individuality. How is that dance, right? In relationships, it's very clear.
Well, do you think it's do you think, and I don't know if Carlos ever talked about it, do you think it's even possible in this awareness, in the awareness where the first attention is the dominant attention? I've spoken a lot to another seer who for him absolute freedom is combining the three attentions, and
Yes,
my impression is that it's not possible in the first attention. It has to be a combination of the three attentions, so that yes, you have to ride the wave of polarity here, but do you think it's possible that the the utopian idea that we have of what's possible for life as a human being, as an awareness, is something that's not in this world, but is a combination of this world with others? In other words, if someone like Carlos, and maybe Don Juan himself, felt conflict right to the end, it seems that only by that making that next step where they could join their attentions could they ever achieve freedom.
freedom.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and of course, there are so many levels to our own existence that we don't know, right? So, and many levels to that state of conflict that you talk about. But then, when you talk about the third attention, it's a wonderful thing, because the third attention, the third grade of dreaming, is when we are merging the consciousness of the energy body, the cognition of the energy body, with the daily life. So I am, instead of identifying myself as this, human being, woman, I'm 50 years old, I'm identifying myself, and it's something that is a feeling inside with I am energy. I don't know who I am really. So I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable enough that I'm more like a question mark than my ideas.
Right.
When I allow that transition, and it feels natural, and this is how I feel now, live my life every day, then conflict is just is the dance, is the tango dance of life, and it's not even any longer a conflict. It's this state of acquiescing and flowing with life. So the first attention is a magical adventure where I get to be, and I get to play with and mess it up, and fail and gain, but it's no longer a goal, the first attention.
Well, that's why I bring up, always in my interviews, I bring up the conflict, because it seems to be the general state on this planet to deal with. And that I think that if people had a different perspective of what it really is, as opposed to being locked into the story of conflict,
Yeah.
you can still experience it like you're saying before. You can experience it and also be outside of it at the same time. And I think that if you saw it as being, people saw it as being a part of awareness, an integral part of awareness, that it would change what it is, and it wouldn't be something that people spend a lifetime embroiled in. So, anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just, it just brings me a lot of, it's so inspirational what you're saying. It brings me a lot also the difference maybe in the 60s and the 70s, or traditional psychotherapy, where we are trying, the conflict is trying to resolve your personal story, make it more pretty, more digestible.
Right.
And in the view of the seers, that I think what the world right now needs from us is that we put that story in a package and just drop it
Right.
somewhere, FedEx
Right.
to the next galaxy. And because that story doesn't, the story that we have created, who we are, if it serves a purpose, great. But if it doesn't serve, it's just, you don't need to analyze it that much.
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
it's like all did whatever we could. My parents did the best they could done.
Right.
Yes, I did suffer in my childhood. It was fantastic. I learned a lot. I'm done.
Right. Isn't that the poor baby syndrome that Carlos mentioned?
The poor baby syndrome, that we become addictive, and is our budget of identity. So I can I can melt with you, and let's talk about our suffering together,
Right.
and let's fight who is suffering more.
Right. It's like misery loves company is a brilliant old saying, right?
Yeah. Or the identity, or we form an identity around a disease.
Right.
And then it's, you don't heal, not because your body cannot heal, it's because you have established that I have, my identity is cancer, so
Right.
I cannot let go of it.
Right.
Because I have now a whole friend and group support that we all love each other because of cancer.
Right.
So we have to be very careful with that, how we label ourselves.
Right.
Because then you cannot heal, and we are meant for heal. Our bodies wants to heal.
So do you still reconcile, like you're saying before, that a lot of the old stories from the Carlos books or from Don Juan's era was, not to have personal history, to remain detached. I mean, how do you reconcile? I mean, I'm sure you understand the need for detachment and objectivity, but where do you draw the line between subjectivity and objectivity? I mean, that's another balancing act, isn't it? Ruthlessness. What level of ruthlessness is somebody capable of? Do you wrestle with that at all?
No, I think you have two questions there, right? One is the concept of the new book, the old books, is that is relevant still today, and is that the question?
Well, what I'm saying is that yes, like you've decided that you can create your own reality in the way that you don't need to not have a family. You can have a family. You can have attachments in a certain way. Do you find that although you've taken on those, do you find that detachment or objectivity is still a bit of something to wrestle with?
Yes, yeah, I can. I don't think that you can detach from anything unless you are attached.
Right, right.
And that is the spiritual bypass that most spiritual people do, which is okay, I'm detached, I just go and have sex with anybody I want, but I'm not touching. But then, okay, and that is one level of learning. I think we can go a little bit higher in consciousness on that, because only through attachment you can free yourself.
Right.
The ultimate detachment is just unconditional love. How you can fully love someone so dearly that you have no judgment or investment on what that person does. That is why Castaneda, we said, write your blank check of affection towards someone, and you love them. And that is the ultimate task for all parents. Conscious parenting is about unconditional love, and it's so hard.
Right, and
But
that's
unless I don't experience that, you don't have to have your own kids. Anything can become your kid. Your job, any relationship. Unconditional love that person and see how hard it is.
right.
So, and that is the ultimate task, I think.
And that's where we come up with we bump our heads into paradox.
Yes. And then how you can, because then how can I unconditionally love myself?
Right.
And that means no matter what I do, I'm still going to be there for myself. Right. And because sometimes I get lost in self-improvement.
Right.
We do spirituality, we go to worship, we do all this psychotherapy, we do all this to improve. But what about self-acceptance? Right. Because we get lost in self-improvement, and you get entangle ourselves in the ego, and you are not free. Right. So what about just self-acceptance? Yeah, I spent so much money trying to improve my voice through the years. I have a raspy voice. Castaneda used to make a lot of fun of it. Here comes Aerin. I said, I'm trying to change my voice. No, I have a raspy voice, and it's a tone, and some people cannot hear it, and I have an accent, and maybe in interviews, some people will turn off the interview, and because they won't like it, my voice. Well, I don't take it personal.
Right.
It has nothing to do with me. You don't like it. If you don't like me, it's not of my business. Right. It's your issue, not mine. So, and I will, and how can I accept whatever form, shape, thoughts, feelings I have, and just keep focusing on what can I do today to make it better out there in the world.
So when you say, how can I accept, that brings up the duality within us all. For instance, I imagine that's why, if not duality, then at least another perspective that we all have within ourselves. I guess that's why you promote being energy, because by promoting the energy, exercising that aspect of our awareness, it gives perspective of the other one, and maybe the balance needs to tilt towards the energy perspective. Is that the basis behind being energy?
Yes, exactly. That is, we are energy. So then the duality comes when I compare myself to something else. I am this, but I am not this. But if I am energy, then there's nothing to compare myself to. I'm just energy. I'm a spirit. I am a question mark. I have no idea what I am, really. So I humble myself and I try to make the best of what I have, the circumstances where I live, and there's no more conflict, there's no more duality. It breaks through that.
Did Carlos recommend? I know tensegrity is part of his teachings.
Yeah.
Did he also recommend dreaming to you and stalking and those arts?
Yeah, yeah, everything. Dreaming is the art of shifting the assemblage point to different places. To shift my identity from Aerin Alexander that comes from Argentina and the solid idea who I am to I am energy. That is a dreaming maneuver. I am dreaming myself as energy first, instead of dreaming myself as the limitations of being a woman with all the limitations that that implies. Any word that we use to describe who I am will be limiting for every one of us. Even if you say I am the best thing in the world, it's still limiting. What about I am energy? So I get out of the syntax of duality that you were talking about. So then I have endless possibility. He used to say the word, I am the phrase, I am the being that is going to die, like a mantra. So if I am a being that I'm going to die, and that will happen to all of us, then what are my attachments? What are my fear? What is my fear really? The worst thing that can happen to me, it is going to happen. And I don't know when, I cannot stop it, and I cannot control it. So what is the fear? I will show up then tomorrow to my job. I will create a new class. I will take that trip to Japan that I'm dreaming of. Let's just go and do it.
But while that's going on, that's your identity in a way. But is your energy also have a different idea of what the future holds? In other words, Carlos, I don't think was planning. I mean, he must have had his own definitive journey.
Well, what do you mean?
In the way that the Carlos that would have died, the I that would have died, something of Carlos, I imagine, continued.
Yeah, look at all of us. Look at us right now talking about him, you know. Definitely his legacy, what made his legacy so amazing and his books so available to everyone, because I talk to people from Moscow, from Russia, from Mexico, from all different, from Japan. How come these books touch everybody? Because he made them so impersonal. He wrote it from that state of consciousness, I am energy. He didn't write it from the, from the Western white male that I'm going to say something so intelligent and be so brilliant. He wrote it more, the books from an impersonal point of view, from a very vulnerable, where his teaching was laughing at him all the time, where his character in the books he's very vulnerable,
right,
and very, he's almost like a silly guy,
right,
trying to follow these teachings, and we all can identify with him.
right.
And that is what he was.
Yeah.
The work that he did, the work that we do and we invite everybody to do, is make your story so impersonal that then everybody can relate to you. And we become more empty of the heaviness of being right and suffering, all that unnecessary suffering that we want to attach to because we have invested our identity on it. If we can let go of all that and our certainty of what is going to happen tomorrow, and we live in a state of openness.
Well, it's funny because that's an interesting in a way paradox that you're saying, because you're saying impersonal, but in a way he was so personal. He just revealed himself without fear of how he looked. He, like you say, he revealed himself, right? And I know that even doing my interviews, I can have a little voice in the back of my head that I don't want to look stupid, right? You know what I mean? Like, but if you just blurt out and be open, there's a freedom in that, and there's an impersonality in that, but there's also personal in that, in the way of I'm revealing myself and you're revealing yourself, which is always
and
charming.
I love how you ask your questions. I love I love how you express yourself. It's you.
Yeah.
There's not holding more into how I should. It's more fresh, more being in the present moment here and now.
Right. Awesome. Well, it's been awesome to talk with you. And the one question that I would like to ask is that if you could give a message to people. If this was being seen by all of humanity, if you could say something to people, what would you say?
I love you, and love yourself. And we are here. We have a specific time in this planet, and it's very determined by higher forces. Whatever time we have, how you want to use it. And it's your time. It doesn't belong to anybody else. It's how do you want to use it? I will just post a question and I will frame, I will support the person and cherish everybody that goes after their dreams. I love to hear stories of how people, they do what you do. You love to do interviews, so you contact everybody and you have been so patient and me and scheduling and show up to do interviews. You are following your path with heart. So follow your path with heart. What is it? Use your time that is given to you. Use it. Show up. Overcome the fears. Just show up and mess it up. Life is messy. Go for it. Go for it. So that will be my message today. Maybe tomorrow I can say something more eloquent.
That was very eloquent. And you know what? The moment is always fleeting and magical and full of wonder. So every moment's awesome. And tomorrow might change, but that doesn't diminish what you just said, which is very eloquent and beautiful.
Yeah.
One last thing. Do you have a few more minutes?
Sure.
2012. That's been a big year for a few of the seers that I've spoken to as well. Did he give any more information on how he foresaw 2012, what it meant?
Yeah, he talked a lot about in that afternoon specifically, about how things will come revealed so clear to us, and we need to really tighten our belts and be very listening and be very focused on what is coming to us, discern reality from illusion, and connect to the source of consciousness, the center of the galaxy. Just connect to the information that comes.
Did he have a sense?
And what you want to do with that knowledge.
Did he have a sense of how that would affect humanity? Because obviously, as everyone's aware, the world is becoming more extreme, polar. I mean, like the Trump extreme, which is, I don't judge it. It's just an extreme, and the extremes are becoming much more pronounced.
Yes, it's more white and black. Yes.
Right.
It's more very clear. He said that that was his dream. Was I think he will be so happy. I mean, I can see him laughing and laughing, having a great time with what is going on right now in the world, with the Women's March, what is happening right now in the world, where and in United States, the United States finally can be an example of something great for the world instead of just fast food and Starbucks. Nothing personal against, but now we are being an example of integrity, of saying time's up on that behavior, which is not really towards men. It's being targeted right now towards certain behavior that men did in the past, or it's about power, how we use power in that way. Now we need to revamp that, define that, and use power in a different way that will be empowering for everybody. The domination of power in the last thousands of years in the world have been very limiting how we use power.
Right.
It's really it's not that great for anyone. Using power to put down other people or ideas. It's just that belong to the 1800s, it seems. How we can use power to generate new ideas, new ways of relating, all the technology how can serve humanity in a way that will be for thriving. I think he is really happy about what is happening today in the world. But there is definitely an acceleration.
And I imagine that it's putting the pressure on the masses, the critical mass, to become more self-aware. Because if everyone's still struggling with that unconscious polarity, it's always going to be just a matter of extremes. But it seems that the extreme is forcing people to find their own inner institution to rely on, as opposed to outside institutions which seem to be crumbling around them.
Yes, yeah, the outside institutions, they have been crumbling politically. The financial world, the church, and the Catholic Church have fallen. The system, because of all the abuse as well of power. Yes, it is the moment to build. I think it will take a moment, and hopefully we will be alive to see the glimpses of it. But we are creating new structures that will serve for the purpose of the evolution of consciousness. There's no way around. If you don't evolve, you devolve. You cannot zigzag and playing small anymore. Or you show up and you are truthful and honest, or you are not. It's like, or you are contributing or you are destroying. There's no more like, oh, I just play neutral. There's no neutral. Are you contributing to a better world? Are you being generous or you are not? Which is no judgment on it, but there's no more plain hiding. There's no more hiding. There's nowhere to hide. This interview right now, there are cameras everywhere you walk on the streets. You cannot hide anywhere. So that is the decision. What decisions I would make it consciously. And there's a great movement of a lot of individuals, great spiritual teachers, and even politicians now that start using a language that is serving for the evolution of consciousness. There's new, here in Los Angeles, we have the Attorney General of California. You hear the guy talking. It's just really inspiring. Obama was an incredible, in my opinion, an amazing, the best president of the United States. He was an incredible maybe he didn't do many things I don't agree, maybe something that he did, but there's an integrity, there's a human being with a heart there. And that is what we want from all our leaders, to show up, to have integrity, honesty, and a heart. And hopefully there will be more. Hopefully this becomes contagious and the cool thing to do. the thing that we can sell now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this, Randall.
Thank
Send
you.
me your contact so I can send this interview to others.
Okay, I'll edit it and put it together over the next couple of days, and I'll send you the link.
Yeah, and thank you for letting me talk about my teacher, because on April this year it's going to be 20 years that he died. Yeah. So on April 28th, 2018. Oh, wow. So it's like, I feel also it's like personally it's like a closing of an era for me as well, you know, and seeing my apprentices with him as what changed my life completely.
Well, it's interesting just that how through his books, and obviously directly in your case, how he's influencing all sorts of people who are influencing the world.
Yes, at all levels. Yes, yeah. And when even though maybe the books you read it and the language is a little outdated, but it's up to each of us to find significance and meaning on that and update it. Now, in the books, he talks about, for example, if you have children, you will have energetic holes in the body, right? For that reason, he didn't recommend it. And at the beginning, I was challenging the idea of the holes. And sure, I can see the hole, because your child is a lot of work and a lot of energy to raise someone consciously. And at the same time, I can repair my energetic hole. Right. And yes, there is a hole, and it's fantastic, and I will really inspire other people. If you don't want to have your own children, don't adopt or mentor children, because the new generation right now needs us to support them for facing the challenges that they're going to be facing in the world as it is today.
Right. Well, a lot of them seem to be coming into this world already advanced, evolved beings, so it's very, very interesting time.
Yes, my son is 10 years old, and he grabs the iPhone and he knows exactly what to do. And I don't let him use the iPhone. We have a policy of media very strictly in my house. However, instantly he knows everything, all the apps and everything that I don't even know how to use sometimes. Right. So yes, they come with a lot of knowledge, and we have to support them with the wisdom of the ones of the era when all this didn't existed. Right. So they don't get lost in the technology. Right. There's much more than technology in our lives.
Right. And everything's trying to steal our attentions if we're not vigilant.
Yes. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you. Okay. Bye-bye.